Welcome to episode number 47 of the Castbar. News makes a comeback. Nothing groundbreaking, but at least something worth talking about. A closer look at class quests comes our way as we ride the artifact hype train to Legion. A new giveaway starts today, and we're going to finish all that off with a review of Zul Farak. Thank you, and enjoy. Welcome everybody to the Castbar, the World of Warcraft Podcast, channeling your content with no interrupts. Today is Sunday, October 4th at approximately 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I am your host, Michael Schwan, and with me, as always, I have Evan.
How you doing, guys?
And Florian.
How's it going?
It is going well. We are into the month of Halloween, and my kid could not possibly be more excited. It is a countdown for her all over the place.
I'm counting down for Hallows End, personally.
Wait, why?
No reason, I guess. It's just something about it. I think it's one of the cooler world events just because of what happens in the small towns with the invasion. You know, I mean, it's all the decorations around. I mean, it's kind of a fun time. Like,
I'm waiting because I still need to do it for what a long strange trip it's been.
It's not so bad. They don't require you to get the mount for that one.
No, I already have it though. So
mount. Yeah. But as part of the meta achievement for the Purple Drake.
Right. The only thing that I actually need to do for Halloween, I've done everything besides their standard fly to a whole bunch of places across all of the planets and have a party.
We'll see how fast you can knock it out. Maybe somebody's posted the most efficient route on YouTube. Shave minutes, perhaps even dozens of minutes off of the task.
It doesn't bother me too much. I mean, I normally just put on like a YouTube show or something on Hulu or Twitch or something like that and then just fly off randomly and then realize that I flew over the location that I actually needed to get to and have to proceed to fly halfway back across Azeroth to actually go to where I needed to go. So, Florian, are you all settled in and stuff now? You all good to go?
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah.
Everything's moved in. The internet's on, thank God. And
is it good internet?
It's actually quite surprisingly good considering my location. I got 100 megabits and it's a good connection, so I have no complaints. I was honestly surprised. I considered there would probably be terrible internet, what with the whole ocean in the way, but no, they somehow engineered around it.
They actually, I saw an infographic on the world's internet lines, essentially. They have these giant cables that run along the ocean floor that take the internet from one place to another. And that includes, like, from America to Russia to Japan to all of those. We actually have giant cables under the ocean floor that even run to Hawaii to provide internet. So
Makes sense.
It's not all crazy satellite mumbo jumbo like most of us probably initially think. I'm sure that's what it was at some point in time, but it is no longer.
Isn't Hawaii floating away from mainland U.S. too? Is the cord getting tighter and tighter? That's really funny to watch.
I imagine at one of the ends or something like that, they just kind of let it like unspool or something. I don't know. Is Hawaii floating away? Like,
I don't know for sure. I'm sure there's some guy who like has like a stack of extension cords, and every few months he just has to pull one out and just like plug it up to lengthen it a little bit.
We call it monthly system maintenance.
Exactly.
But is that true, Evan? Is Hawaii floating away?
Well, tell me, Florian, are the smaller islands to the west or to the east? Come on.
I was never told anything about this in geography class.
I want to say south.
Okay, northwest.
North of the smaller islands, actually.
So it looks like you guys are moving to the southeast there.
That's okay.
Wait, no. Never mind. The older ones are farther away from mainland U.S. than the younger ones. So yeah, that cord is getting tighter if it's tied to San Francisco. That's all I'm saying.
Well, true, but you got to think about it. Plate tectonics is so slow that by the time they actually need to replace. By the time the plates have moved enough to make those cords actually worth replacing, the internet will have been so far beyond where it is now that they would have had to replace it anyway just to improve the speeds.
Well,
I don't think that's going to be the driving force.
It's the Pacific plate is rotating, and it's moving about 7 centimeters a year towards Japan. Speaking about Hawaii, so Hawaii, the plate's moving 7 centimeters per year. That's what the fault line is. I think that causes the ring of fire, because it's a circular plate that's rotating in place, and all along California is its kind of fault line, right?
Is that why California is like it's apparently supposed to like break off and fall in the ocean or something?
I think that's the fault line that it's about, yeah. But don't quote me on this. I'm not a geotectonist.
The San Andreas fault, is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's something that we could have put into the show notes and done a little bit of research on. I'm getting a 2015 title called San Andreas with Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah, it's about that fault line, I think.
So
like something happens with the fault line, you know. So, hang on. Now, I have a quick one more question before I actually get down to something that pertains to Warcraft. So, and again, maybe it's because I just didn't pay enough attention in geography class, or maybe they just didn't teach me. I mean, I did go to school in a little backwoods town in Oklahoma, so that could be part of it. Are all the continents and stuff, aren't they attached, like, to the crust at some point? I mean, is Hawaii literally just floating? Like, you can go under Hawaii?
Yeah.
No.
All of our continental shelves are floating on a sea of magma, hundreds of kilometers below the surface.
Technically, yes, they are floating on a sea of magma. As for going under it, I don't think you could, just because magma's really, really hot. Just throwing that out there.
Okay,
so Hawaii is attached to the ocean floor via a giant underwater mountain.
Okay, so that's what I was asking. I understand the whole plate can move, but the way that you said that, it's like just Hawaii is moving, just Hawaii is floating away, nothing else.
Well, yeah, and Alaska's floating away from Russia, right?
I have no idea. I don't know. I mean, I mean, most people other places think that we care about Russia because, you know, we can see them from our backyard, which there's actually only like one place in the state that you can see Russia from. Right. So we don't really care.
But it used to be connected. I mean, indigenous Alaskan people used to have to say, "Oh, where's the dog? He's in Russia," or we'll call him home, and then he'd come back across the ice bridge. No, nope. You don't see that happening anymore.
Nope. Can't say that we do.
We got polar bears dying trying to swim from Russia to the free United States. I saw some photos of it.
No, we don't. We don't have a legal immigrant of polar bears. They actually just mostly live up in the Arctic Circle. But anyway, on to actual things. Welcome to the news, everybody. Alright, the first thing on the news this week is changes that are coming to the Hellfire Citadel and changes that are going to be affecting raids as we go forward. So they're not going to go back and change anything. This is going to be something that they're going to be adjusting as we get new raids in the future, Legion, and forward. So currently we have 4 different difficulties of raiding. It is Raid Finder, Normal, Heroic, and Mythic. So what we have right now is you have Raid Finder, which is, you know, the dungeon finder, and, you know, everything just, you know, you get thrown in a group and you pray that you make it, and you normally don't. But then if you go into normal, you actually have to have an assembled group. Heroic is the exact same as normal, just bigger numbers, more health, more damage, etc. And then Mythic, you get the Mythic mechanics, in which, you know, something is new and added to the encounter and it's crazy and all that kind of different stuff. They're changing this up a little bit to where there is a difference in mechanics from normal to heroic. So what they're going to do for Hellfire Citadel is all the bosses are having a mechanic removed in normal, so that you feel this natural progression of, okay, I have normal, heroic, I get a new ability, and you get an additional new ability going into Mythic.
Approved. Florian?
Yeah, it seems fine. I don't see any real problem with that. My real question is, was that really necessary, though?
I think it'll make some players happier without making anybody obstinate, and Blizzard's always willing to make those kind of tweaks. There's probably a population of guilds out there who can't really handle normal, but don't really want to group queue for LFR because it's not fun, you know?
Well, and part of their explanation for it was that in order to balance normal to where it was easier, essentially, they would make some of the mechanics weaker to the point that they might not matter at all, and they decided that instead of adding those, and instead of keeping those and making them weak to where they don't matter, they would just make the fight easier to understand at a lower difficulty by just removing those mechanics altogether.
I think that that's pretty fair. When I was progressing through Hellfire Citadel, the Blast Furnace fight on normal was deemed harder than the heroic rule and like Beastmaster fights. Certainly Hans and Franz, I would say. And maybe that's something that you want to kind of try to avoid. If a guild is, able to organize themselves to walk in the door on normal difficulty rating, which is the intro level for a guild raid, then they should be able to do the whole thing as long as they're continuing to gear up. There shouldn't be huge technical skill-based challenges. There should be some, because as far as I'm concerned, Looking for Raid has no skill-based challenges. There should be some, maybe at the level it is right now. Again, I'm thinking of Hellfire Citadel. It's kind of heavy, and Heimat wasn't as bad, but it was still tough. Brackenspore was a tough fight to learn, even if you had pretty good gear. And I can imagine that just being kind of a frustrating wall for some players that want to bring their guildmates along that aren't quite there strategically, but are part of the group,
Well, and a quick question. Florian, since now you are settled in Hawaii, you're going to be there for at least a couple or a few years. You no longer have to do formation every night. You're not about to move. You're not in the middle of moving, all that. Well, and I probably not right now, but when we get into Legion, are you going to be looking into raiding a bit more than you... I mean, you haven't been able to at all between internet issues and moving and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Once Legion rolls around, I'm planning to get back into raiding. I don't know how deeply I'm going to get back into it, but I'll definitely be back in at least normal mode, if nothing else.
Okay, so how does this change sound to you, then?
It seems okay. I really don't understand the point, because they want to make a progression from LFR to normal and normal to heroic more smooth, and I understand that. But I don't see LFR as the first stepping stone in progression, because in LFR, all the mechanics are so weak that they literally don't matter. I have seen
tourist mode. Right?
Yeah, you can just slam your head against your keyboard and you will kill the bosses. It is almost impossible to wipe. I have purposely tried to wipe my groups in LFR, and sometimes I can manage it, but it's very hard to do.
Man,
it's hard to make
every time that happens.
So it's... I don't see LFR as the first step to raiding. I see normal as the first step. So I really don't understand smoothing out the progression, but I can understand the point for the more technical fights, like Evan mentioned with the Blast Furnace, where that could become an impediment to someone wanting to continue to raid.
Right. So as far as we know, Heroic is just a numbers improvement on normal as far as difficulty of the bosses. Do you think that there should be a functional, like a functional difficulty to the gameplay between normal and Heroic? Because right now there isn't. It's all just about your level.
There definitely should be, simply because if you can beat the fight on normal, then you can already beat the fight on heroic. All you need is bigger numbers, which means better gears. You don't actually have to get better. There's no real challenge to beating heroic as opposed to normal. It's just spending more time on the gear treadmill, so your numbers will get bigger. I would rather have an extra mechanic in there. So in that sense, this is an improvement.
Cool. Yeah, I basically agreed with that. And I think if somebody came to the Blizzard dev team and said, I think this is a problem, I think that's a pretty good solution to the problem, and I'm looking forward to doing progression this way in the future. Just like I looked forward to doing a progression in the kind of flexible raid format in Warlords, and did end up enjoying that as well.
So, all in all, good change. Good on Blizzard. It's good. And that's kind of been the response from what I've been seeing in response to the posts on this, is most people are like, yeah, sure, whatever, fine, that makes sense. And it's good to see that there are still things that Blizzard can do that doesn't cause someone to rage, because no matter what, someone gets upset, and that doesn't really seem to be the case this time around.
I can come up with an opposing opinion, and that might be the person who can't really do heroic, maybe is a little too casual to farm the gear for it. I'm just throwing something out there. There's a person out there who doesn't do heroic, who does do normal, and doesn't want his normal dungeon success or experience kind of cheapened, saying, "Oh, you're just dumbing it down. I thought it was good before," kind of thing. Maybe there are people out there like that though, but I would guess they're in the minority.
All right, let's go ahead and move along. Blizzard interviews a member of the community. I didn't even know of this person until it showed up that Blizzard was doing this community spotlight. Do either of you know who Sulamoon is?
No idea.
No, I don't think so. But I mean, people post fan art to social media all the time, and I'm looking at her drawings. I might have seen her in the past, and they're pretty good. So if you follow WoW fan art, I'm sure you probably heard of this person.
Well, like, the only WoW artist that immediately comes to my mind is, and even then, her name isn't exactly clear in what I'm trying to think of. I think her name is, like, Noxie Chu. She does a lot of badges for people, for their BlizzCon badges, and you see their like, avatars on Twitter and stuff like that, or a lot of them are done by her. I know that Ro with Rel Maintenance and Panzer with Trade Chat both have avatars that are drawn by her. But even then, I couldn't tell you anything about Noxie, just that she draws stuff. And then Blizzard's like, here's this other person that does WoW art. Let's talk to them. And, you know, the art's good, and the questions are very generic. A lot of people are expressing this as kind of like just really weak filler content from Blizzard. Do either of you see this at all? Like, or is this just Blizzard trying to, you know, do good and, you know, bring some, I don't want to say fame. Fame's not the right word. Some, like, you know, just cordial, you know, applause to somebody who does good work in the community.
I think just community recognition, just to have some print going across their feed. Recognizing community members is a great non-controversial way, well, you would hope, to connect with your player base without saying, you know, here's an exciting announcement or here's a staff member kind of thing. But then again, I think they'd get the same kind of effect if they interview just a staff member. I mean, I like to see what's going on behind the scenes, but maybe they're saying even that's kind of contentious in this climate.
Sure. So and with that, I mean, we haven't had an announcement in a while. I'm guessing, and I want to know if you guys agree with that, I bet we don't really see anything else until BlizzCon.
Probably not. It's a little late in the game to be making any kind of significant announcement now.
Yeah, I mean, BlizzCon's only a month away, so...
Yeah, if we hear anything more about Legion, it'll be at BlizzCon, although I get the feeling BlizzCon is mostly going to be non-Legion announcements.
No, do you think that they could be releasing small, and we talked about this too much in the past, releasing small little details, even if it's just like a piece of art for a new building or some important NPC, just like every week or two? Would that be too, I don't know, counterproductive to PR?
I don't think so, but I mean, they did talk about how they have to be careful with what they say and what they don't say, and, you know, because the community has been getting so volatile with their reactions to things. So, I mean, they can post this and people will immediately think one thing, and it just goes down a giant rabbit hole of badness. It's the only thing I can think of. People
anonymously on the internet can be kind of a tumultuous force, I guess. How do you describe people when they start getting angry and vocal? You know, you're working with a lot of potential energy as far as a social network there, so they're doing some engineering, I would think. It just kind of stinks. Yeah, go ahead.
I think that the loudest people are always the ones who are most upset, because they're the ones that have something to yell about. Whereas, like, a lot of the times, you know, even though sometimes we're like, Blizzard, maybe you shouldn't have done this, maybe you shouldn't have done that. A lot of the times when Blizzard's like, hey, we're doing this, we're like, all right, yeah, sure, cool, go ahead. That sounds great, you know, progress, you know, new stuff, woohoo. But for us, it's like, you know, woohoo, and we're done. And when that's all you have, I mean, you're not going to, for, you know, a week straight and, you know, go on the forums every day and be like, oh man, this is the greatest thing ever. I'm going to go post on Reddit every day about how great this is. But if something is bad, then people will continue to rage about it all the time. And
Yeah, they want to create some kind of change. If something's good, then you pretty much say, you give a thumbs up and say, yeah, business as usual, keep on keeping on there, Blizzard.
Yeah, exactly.
Bad, you want to make sure that they know that you think it's going to be bad, you know?
Mm-hmm. Which I think is where a lot of that comes from, because with a lot of the changes, I mean, like, we'll go way back to an overblown topic. The idea of that there wasn't going to be flying in Draenor. A lot of us were like, okay, you know, that's cool, I guess. I can understand why, you know, if it means that you get to make better content. The leveling content in Draenor was great. Sure, go for it, Blizzard. Why not? No flying. Don't need it. You know, you done good. And from a lot of the, I don't want to say the bigger voices and stuff like that, but a lot of the collective voice was, yeah, whatever. You know, I just want to play my game. And the people who were like, oh my god, where's my flying? They were the loudest, and they continued to yell. Whereas the ones who were okay with it, they were just like, okay, moving along now.
Yeah, seriously. But yeah, we get into this quite often. I think how much Blizzard's talking, what they're saying, why they aren't saying more, and then pretty much figuring out the reasons that can be so explosive. Florian, do you have we're always usually on the same page. Do we usually have a good synopsis? Or can you give us a good synopsis of what we generally end up deciding when this conversation comes up?
I think our standard decision is that, yes, the minority is super loud, but there's nothing you can really do about that, because the majority are already happy and therefore will not be motivated to be loud. So it just kind of is what it is.
I'm thinking Blizzard's able to tease out the good ideas. I think a lot of the good ideas are theirs to begin with anyway, even if we come up with them before or after.
Definitely. I'm sure, I'm 100% sure everyone on the team is well aware that the people who are screaming the loudest are all complete lunatics and have no idea what's actually best for the game.
They just want things their way. So, anyway. MMO Champion recently did a poll, again, probably just trying to fill people's void of anything until, you know, we actually get something, which, like we said, probably won't be until BlizzCon. They did a poll. Evan, would you like to tell us about it, please?
I was calling some Beast Riders.
Oh, I can do it. So they asked, would you like, if you were able to level your character down based on the zone that it was in? So, Florian, you know the most about this type of effect because it's Final Fantasy XIV that does exactly this, correct?
Yes.
Can you tell us about it, please?
Well, they have it designed for both dungeons and for these sort of world events that spawn in the world, where basically you get into a dungeon and you get leveled down to whatever the maximum level at which that dungeon is designed for is, and all of your skills and abilities will be reverted to whatever you had back then. So any new abilities you've learned since that level disappear off your hotbar. You have to go back to older rotations. All your gear's item levels are sort of dynamically moved down, kind of like with time walking, to make yourself a little bit weaker. And it's a really great system because it allows you to still play and enjoy and benefit from older dungeon content. You can even gain experience and level up from it, and it'll give you an more appropriate amount of experience for your actual level. And you can play with a wider variety of players without having to wait for the few guys who are at whatever level you need to be at to do the dungeon that you want to do. Yeah. That's pretty much the gist of it.
It sounds great. And MMO Champion, we've talked about something similar to this system before. MMO Champion sent out a poll and was like, yo, hey, would you want this? You got 3 options. Yes, if it was optional. Yes, if it was always on, which that's how Final Fantasy does it, right? You don't get a choice, just it automatically does it.
For world events, you get a choice, but you're not able to participate in the event unless you choose to level down.
Okay.
For dungeons, it's all automatic.
Okay. And then just flat out no. The results are 17% said yes, I would want that to always happen. 29% said no, I do not want that to happen. And 53% said yes, as long as it was optional. So, what are your guys' votes on this? Florian, where would you want this in Warcraft, and how would you like it to work?
I would like it. I would also like it to remain optional, simply because there are times when you want to be overpowered. Like, for example, if you're rerunning old raids to try to farm something up, like if you're going after things like Invincible or something like that, and you're hitting that raid again every week, it's going to be very troublesome if you're suddenly level 80 trying to fight the Lich King. It's not going to work out great for you.
And Evan, how about yourself?
Yeah, I feel kind of the same way. I think I would like to play a game where it was designed from the start to be that way, but introducing it when something like transmog and rare hunting and basically epic dungeon farming is so popular, I can't see it going over well being mandatory all the time just because of old raids.
But if it was optional, then you think it'd be fine?
Yeah, especially with all those benefits of leveling up. If I could participate in a 25-man Blackwing Lair raid at, ostensibly level 60, and you don't have to find max level players, and you got really relevant rewards from it and that kind of thing, I think that would be awesome.
Now, Florian, let me ask you a quick question on this. If you had leveled yourself down, besides the enjoyment of it, and, if you weren't max level, you could get, well, there isn't anything like Paragon levels or anything like that in Final Fantasy, right?
No, just endgame's pretty much just item levels, like WoW has.
So there wasn't, besides enjoyment and possibly experience if you weren't max level, is there anything that else you could get out of leveling yourself down? Or being leveled down? Yes, actually,
there are other benefits. Specifically, when you take lower level players through content they've never been before, this is both for dungeons and raids, you are rewarded with a significant amount of these sort of badges. I guess they kind of work like the Valor or Justice or something like that. So basically, you get rewarded for helping out lower level players at their level and guiding them through dungeons by getting more stuff that you need for your progression.
All right, then. So that would be great for Warcraft 2, no different, right? Especially if we do, like, maybe if this went in, depending on how much of it you need, maybe they could give you artifact power for going back, and, as an option, or if back when we had Valor points, if this was an option to another access point to get Valor instead of the sad, like, 1 or 2 ways that we had to get it in Pandaria, it could have been just something that people would find themselves going to do.
Or just to gear up, Florian, if you get a piece of loot from the dungeons while you're scaled down, is the piece of loot scaled up for you?
Unfortunately, that does not happen.
But that is how it works in Time Walking.
In Time Walking, yes. I could see that being a thing in WoW.
Yeah, can you imagine if you get to max level and you need to grind some dungeons so you can get your item level up to do heroic dungeons? Well, you don't grind just the 5 dungeons of that expansion, which people always complain about, the repetition and tedium of that. How about all 55 dungeons that are in the group finder leveling all the way up? That would be an enormous variety. You could get, you keep your specific dungeons, build relevant transmogs, that kind of thing, but it would all be high-level, high-powered stuff, like end-game stuff, intro dungeon gear at least, and then I think that would make the gear grind a lot less tedious.
Give you another option. Yeah, that'd be nice. So we are all sitting on the yes, as long as it's optional thing?
I'd say that's a solid assessment.
Yeah, let's do it. All of the benefits, none of the drawbacks. That'd be perfect.
Sounds great. All right, let's go on and go into the next thing. So we spoke about this about 6 months ago. There is a group of very dedicated individuals that are remaking Warcraft 3, the original RTS. They are remaking it from the ground up in the StarCraft 2 engine. So, and to avoid, I don't know if it's to avoid cease and desist or if it's something to do with the engine. There's not a whole lot of details on it. They're keeping this very close to the chest to try and avoid being shut down, because a lot of the times when fans do things like this, they lawyers get involved and then it's badness and then it gets turned off. They're having to design, by my understanding, they're having to redesign all of the models and everything from the ground up to be able to put them in StarCraft, because they can't just import them, because I don't know if it's a copyright thing or if it's a problem with the system. I don't know. All I know is they're having to remake everything, which is a lot of work. So they released a new video. You can find it right now on MMO Champion. Right now, at least, it's on the very top. Depending on when you're listening to this, you might need to scroll down a little bit. It's a few minutes long, and it shows you a little bit of the content. You know, it shows the Horde, some of the mercenaries, and the Alliance. Now, did you guys watch the video?
Yeah, I checked it out, and I saw the video back 6 months ago too. I agree with your comment on it. My first impression was that it looks pretty much exactly like the original game. What's even different? Or am I just used to really high poly count graphics, and when it's slightly lower than, like, say, World of Warcraft, I'm thinking that's borderline archaic. Is that my impression? Is it colored by my current experience?
See, I don't know, because I was feeling the same way, because they had so much more of it done. They had the trees done, they had everything, well, not everything done, but they had so much more of it in there. And
right,
while
but
I
it
was
still like the same, like the one tree back from 2002, copy and pasted 100 times.
Yeah, I mean, when I looked at it, I was like, you know, it's really cool you guys are doing this, but I mean, it doesn't really seem like a remake. It kind of looks like you guys just kind of polished those old models a little bit and are putting those in there. Because when I was watching them go through, I mean, if I looked real closely, I could tell the textures were higher. And so, you know, it was like an HD version of Warcraft 3, but it didn't look new. I mean, it kind of looked like the difference of, like, if you're watching someone play a video game on an okay computer and a godlike computer, you know, you're like, oh, well, one of these is clearly a little bit better than the other because, you know, this system has more power to crank out the graphics and all that kind of different stuff. That's kind of the way I felt looking at it, is that it just kind of looks like they're playing Warcraft 3 on a better computer that could handle things better. And, like, well, I was super excited about it 6 months ago. Looking at it now, I'm like, oh, that just, that doesn't look like much.
Warcraft 3 at that point? Yeah, I don't know. Well, I think something that you'll just have to do is a side-by-side comparison. Everybody's still got their old battle chest in the closet somewhere. Well, maybe not. I don't think. But yeah, we'll have to see when it comes out. Maybe it just plays a lot differently. It's more about feel, you know.
Maybe, and I'm sure if I went on YouTube and looked, that someone's probably already done a comparison video. And maybe side by side it'll be more evident, but without the exposure to the old and the what we'll call ugly, the old and the ugly, the new and the shiny didn't look real shiny to me.
Maybe staying true to the art of the original was important to them, and it's all about gameplay mechanics and efficiency. I mean, I've never played StarCraft 2 either, so I don't know if there's anything much different with the system that makes it better than the system they're using for Warcraft 3, you know?
Nothing really, not that I can think of. I mean, and they're having to do a lot of, not necessarily coding changes, but a lot of different just changes to, they had to add an extra resource because you now have more than just, no, you don't. They just changed a few things. I mean, the difference between Warcraft 3 and StarCraft wasn't too large. The biggest difference was army sizes, really. I mean, and how you got your materials, because, you know, StarCraft uses... No, it's even still not that different. I mean, StarCraft, you chop down crystals, and Warcraft, you chop down trees, and StarCraft, you suck gas out of Vespene tubes, and in Warcraft, you get gold, and they both have the standard, whatever it's called, of how many people you can have. There's a word for it.
The rations?
Like how many people you can feed, essentially. There's a specific word for how big of an army you can have. I forget what it's called.
It's not rations, is it?
No. It's something else. It's
Capacity.
Supply? Is that it? Supply?
Anyway,
yeah, anyway. So the difference between the game aren't too large.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, I'm sorry. I was done.
Florian, did you not see the video of the new updated progress on the thing? Did you see the last one they released, or do you have any thoughts that are rekindled again with this new discussion in this place?
I'm looking at the new video right now. I didn't know it was a thing until very recently. Very recently meaning when you guys brought it up. But it definitely looks better than the original Warcraft 3. A lot of the models are definitely less jaggy. It's a noticeable difference, but I don't know if it's big enough difference to make it worth having this be a thing that exists, I guess.
Well, and this is like they've been working on it now for like a year and a half, 2 years. And with how long, I realize, it's not a paid studio. This is some people working on it in their spare time, blah, 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 blah. But, I mean, you're not making money off this. This is real cool. Right. It's like it
could be a test of concept. Really, people have never modified the StarCraft 2 engine, maybe to this extent.
That's not true.
Is that not true? Okay. The other one might be just a labor of love, and people really like the game and want something to do.
Maybe, yeah. I understand that. Yeah. To give an example of a time when StarCraft was modded even heavier than this, it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. There was a group that was heavily editing stuff in StarCraft 2's map maker, world maker, whatever, and they were about 60% of the way done with building a entire MMO a la World of Warcraft that operated in StarCraft. Like, they'd even modded it to where your camera goes into a certain space and you can follow around behind your guy, and they were...
This is something that maybe I don't think Michael was exposed to, but Warcraft 3 mods before World of Warcraft came out. Did you play Warcraft 3 back in the day, since you didn't start until Wrath of the Lich King?
I played tons and tons of Warcraft 3 and Frozen Throne.
All right, so the custom games, you were in there playing all of the single hero style RP arenas and stuff like that. That was the original kind of World of Warcraft concept that I got when I was trying to conceptualize this game that they were trying to hype back in the day. So I can imagine a MMO kind of framework inside the StarCraft 2 battle map engine creator thing, because that's what we used to see a lot of in the Frozen Throne and World of Warcraft custom map building custom games, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure what was different, though, because Blizzard sent the people that were making the StarCraft MMO thing, they sent them a cease and desist, and it was going to operate entirely through StarCraft, but Blizzard told them to stop. And that's why these people that are doing this Warcraft 3 remake thing, they're keeping so much under wraps in hopes that Blizzard won't tell them to stop. Because that's kind of, a fan creator's worst nightmare of like, I'm building this really cool thing, it's going to be awesome, and then you receive this piece of paper that says that if you don't stop, we're going to sue you, and then you have to throw away the last, 2 years of your life that you've been dedicating to this thing.
They shouldn't be sending those letters to these guys. They should be sending them to those people on those Harry Potter websites. Oh my god.
What?
Oh, never mind. Talk about fan fiction and fan content in general.
Oh, okay. Lost me there. Anyway, yeah. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, if they keep working on it, it looks really good so far. I assume they're getting closer to being finished, but I don't know just how much they're doing. Like, if this is just going to be a skirmish type mode, or if they're going to be adding in story mode. We don't really know. Like I said, they're keeping everything real close to the chest, so just have to wait and see. One more thing in the news real quick, and that is a quick little couple things about a few other MMOs. We had spoken about this about 6 months ago as well, and that is WildStar was going free to play as of a few days ago. It is now officially free to play. If you would like to, well, as we wait for content for Legion to come around, if you would like something else to do, go give WildStar a try. I did. I actually tried it several months ago. I got the entire game in a month subscription for $1 out of a Humble Bundle. So close enough to free. I tried it. I didn't like it. But that doesn't mean you won't. I know that there's plenty of people out there. The game's still going, so someone must like it. I didn't care for it. Maybe you will. You can go give it a shot. Now that it's free, are either of you going to be trying WildStar?
Maybe. I don't know when. I'm not going to go try it right now, but it's on my radar, I guess.
And Florian?
I'll pass. I was never particularly interested in it to begin with.
Furry space creatures.
Yeah. I'm all good
how
for space creatures.
For other MMOs, though, Guild Wars 2 is releasing its new expansion in just a few weeks. It is called Heart of Thorns. Guild Wars 2 has been going pretty well. Guild Wars has actually always been a very strong MMO. They operate on a buy-to-play model. So what that means is that you buy the game and you don't have to pay anything past that. There's no subscription cost or anything like that. So you can just, buy the game and then it's like you have it forever. But it's an MMO. So, you get the whole social experience and all stuff like that as well. So if you are interested in giving Guild Wars a try, there's about to be a new expansion. Obviously, if you're just jumping into the game, that probably means you got a long way to go before you actually get anything in the expansion. But it's something that is of note and that you might want to take a look in. Have either of you played Guild Wars 2?
No, I played Guild Wars 1 very, very, very briefly several years ago. I haven't tried out 2 yet. Just because I know can you try it for free at least? You have to buy it to get to play it all.
Well, actually, it was in late August, they switched Guild Wars 2 to a free-to-play game, so you just have to buy the expansion. You can play the base game for free.
Oh, that's balling.
Okay, right.
So go try it, Evan.
Yeah, I guess it's definitely worth trying, if nothing else.
I'm going to try
enjoyed
Guild Wars 2 before I try WildStar, let's just say that. And then I'm also looking at Final Fantasy 14. I might check out their trial mode, too, after this.
I have tried all of these games. I like MMOs. Guild Wars 2, it's a beautiful game. I liked it a lot. I just had a problem with the progression system, because I played the first Guild Wars a ton. I've probably played that as more than any other MMO, and I loved it. Guild Wars 2 had a lot of a good similar feel to the original Guild Wars. Just the way that you progressed your abilities, I thought was complete garbage. Final Fantasy 14, I liked it a lot. I just, at the time, couldn't quite get into it. But it has a stellar story progression that you don't need other players for. It delivers it real well. And I would highly recommend either one of those games. I can't really recommend WildStar at all.
I think I did the free week for Final Fantasy. I was a big, tall, barrel-chested guy, whatever race that is. They made me walk around a city for like 2 hours before I could leave and do anything. Does that sound familiar?
You should not have had to walk around a city for 2 hours.
That doesn't sound familiar.
The intro quest was me in a port city, and they made me do like 17 quests. It seems like running back and forth. It takes a lot of time to get across that city. It's like it seems bigger than Orgrimmar, and they're having me run all over the place. It's almost like the size of a Durotar, I'd say.
Well, I don't remember that, and I didn't play the big barrel-chested people. But yeah, that doesn't ring any bells to me. But that is one thing that I can say is the statement you just said about the size is a pretty good thing to bring to light of that. These newer MMOs that have come out recently are huge. Yeah, they're massive. Just keep that in mind.
Oh yeah, Limsa Laminosa. Or Laminsa. You know that town? That's where I was.
No, I don't. I didn't play it enough.
So I did check out the intro. It really played a whole lot like the old Final Fantasy XI The Yore, which I did play for quite a while. And if we're going to talk about the differences, I think it's got a really WoW-like feel with like a heavier art quality. Like you said, it's really gorgeous, right? Oh, you're talking about Guild Wars 2 at that point, though.
I said they were both really pretty. Okay,
well, definitely agreed in Final Fantasy 14. WoW certainly does have its style, but there are other styles out there, right? That look really good. WildStar, yeah, just a difference, right? Maybe even cartoonier than WoW.
Yeah, it's very like I guess like Pixar-esque is a good way to think of it.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say even League of Legends is kind of cel-shaded, like not realistic at all compared to Heroes of New Earth or Dota 2.
No, the straight-up art style of WildStar is very, very different. Like I said, Pixar is probably the closest thing I can think of. And just while we're on the topic of MMOs, if you want to try something else, Terra is a free-to-play MMO that is quite popular and rising in recent time. They just had an expansion come out. Terra is free. The expansion is free. I think the expansion's free. So if that's another option for you to check out as well. One last thing in news. We do not have a top Reddit post of the week this week because they were all garbage. So there's that.
Oh, you know we have a bumper for that, right? To play to the Reddit posters.
We do? There's a bumper that I don't know about.
Your little sound bite you do. Was it? You guys suck.
Oh!
You guys suck.
That one?
Sorry, Reddit. I haven't actually been subscribed to our WoW. Recently, I haven't really checked it out. I've just started getting back into Heroes of the Storm news. I've just been browsing elsewhere on the internet for the past couple of weeks. I have seen Reddit posts from WoW though. These lore tidbits. This little gallery of 10 screenshots with little lore fun facts. Florian, have you seen these? Certainly. So, you know what I'm talking about?
I don't believe I have.
I know what you're talking about, Evan.
You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Okay, very nice. Just so we're aware that I think they're really cool, actually.
There's a whole series of them, isn't there? And they have YouTube videos too.
Yeah, they have it's lore trivia, and I wish we could cite the content creator there because it's running series, and that caught my eye. Really kind of cool fun facts. Some of them I don't know very much about. The other ones are cool, no neat surprises, and that's some quality content going through Reddit WoW right now.
All right. Well, if you want, take a look and see if you can get what the content creator is and where people can find it, and we will give that a quick shout out. But on to the closer look. This week we're going to be talking about class quests. I mean, with the idea of, the class artifacts and stuff that are in the works, for Legion, those are kind of like the fruits coming to bear in terms of class quests, something a lot of people have been requesting for a very long time. And so, well, let's dive into a little bit of what class quests are and what we think about them. So let's start with the beginning, and this is in vanilla, and way back when there was a few classes. I don't believe they all had them, but I could be wrong. Be happy to correct me, Evan, Mr. Vanilla over there. Every class had, not every class, I need to stop saying that. A few classes had these like super weapons that they could go after. Warriors had the Quell Sorar that they had to go after that had you doing all this long quest with Onyxia. There's that weird hunter bow whose name I can never pronounce. And then priests had like Benediction. Is there any others?
No, except the legendary weapons, which are not class specific. Those are the only ones I was really aware of.
Do you remember the hunter bow's name? It's like Rockdalar.
Yeah. Lockdalar and Rockdalar, I think, were the two. It's a staff and a bow.
Okay.
Because hunters could have a melee weapon back in those days. But
they needed one.
That and Benediction were from the chest at Major Domo. I think both of the starting items that dropped from the chest there, if I'm not mistaken. Again, I only did one for a handful of times. I was just getting into raiding at that point. Quell Sorar was really famous, tank sword quest line, and that I think was started in UBRS. You had to drop a rare item for Compendium of Dragon Slaying. I'm not positive on that, but
and it took you through Onyxia, right?
Sorry, saying you had to have it kind of heated up by her deep breath attack. So you place it on the ground and get her to do the fire breath and then survive the fight. Really kind of cool. The quest line for Shadowmourne, I guess, that weapon you get, not Arthur's a sword, but the axe. You're collecting souls with it in the dungeon, that kind of thing,
Mm-hmm. Okay, so did you get a chance? What were you playing in Vanilla, Evan?
Oh, no mage.
Oh, so this didn't pertain to you at all.
I also had a druid. Yeah, I got in Molten Core with those two characters. It was always cool going out and seeing the stuff in the wild, though. I remember in Aldrich Valley finding hunters from different servers. Sometimes it had the Quell Sorar, or not, the Rockdalar. Really cool. It was the coolest looking stuff you could get back then, definitely. So you're definitely super jealous. The priests looked awesome with their huge, glowing staff thing, and you could transform it into the Anathema, the Shadow Priest weapon. I mean, it was really awesome. So mostly you were jealous. If you had a couple of priests in your guild or a hunter, you were really kind of excited for them when they did it. I know that the hunter had to kite a demon solo basically across all of Winter Spring just by running and shooting behind it to kite this thing to death as part of that Rockdalar quest. So really super challenging stuff, and it was kind of a group effort back then. I mean, we weren't as focused on the gear we were getting, different community.
Instead, now it's just all about me. Where's my legendary?
Some people, definitely.
I want one. I'm sad I didn't actually finish getting Benediction.
Which is fair, right? I mean, in the long run, it's cooler if you're the one that gets them, but maybe you take away a little bit of the uniqueness of it and rarity, then it becomes kind of this middle ground. You're always chasing the dragon, so to speak, isn't that right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Getting too philosophical, you guys. I think back then, class-specific weapons, there were only 2 or 3 of them, really. They were really awesome, and some of the coolest things you can do in the game, and really cool quest lines associated with them. But they were so rare, nobody really had them. If you knew a guy who had them, it was pretty rare. So these days, legendary cloak, legendary ring, everybody gets one. Definitely removes the epic feel, but I think Blizzard's got a really hard time balancing frequency and rarity with epicness because they're kind of diametrically opposed, right?
Yeah, in Warcraft, in Diablo, it's just a grind fest farm, oh my god, something shiny dropped, oh, it's a piece of crap. Whereas in Warcraft, it's much more selective on the gear that you're able to get. So I think it's a lot harder for them to balance in Warcraft to make it feel like there's this effort versus reward so that you can get something big and shiny, but they're limited on how many ways they can deliver that to you.
What would be the difference between dropping this item at the start of this super long class-specific quest chain and just getting the reward with the same randomness?
Chance for feeling awesome?
Or you talk about Blizzard's effort versus reward and how much work it takes to create a unique experience.
Well, both. And you can't do the Quel'Serrar, Lock Delar, whatever, Benediction quests anymore. And it also used to be that Paladins and Warlocks had class quests that they had to do to get their mounts, to get the Paladin's Charger and the Warlock's Hellsteed. All of those are gone now, and people are like, hey, those are really fun, why don't we get those anymore? And Blizzard says, well, it's a lot of work for something that only 9% of the 9% of the player base gets, and it might even be less than that. What were the numbers? It was only 5% of all the players play monk or whatever, and so if they did a monk class quest, you're only giving content to 5% of your player base. Where if you do something, kind of like these, quote unquote welfare legendaries, technically that's something everybody can do. So that means everybody gets to enjoy it and experience it and have it affect them. And so it's more content delivered to everybody for less work. That was one of the biggest things that they said of it's not like, developing a single class quest takes any less time than a quest for everybody. So it's just a whole bunch of extra work that we would be creating for ourselves for what may or may not be an optimum level of satisfaction from the player.
Yeah, honestly. Well, yeah, go ahead, Florian.
They do have a point with that, where it isn't an optimal work to content ratio, but that only works if you consider content in terms of the amount of time spent playing the quest, as opposed to, say, the amount of enjoyment obtained from playing the quest. For me, the class quests were always great because they added a lot of flavor to the class. I really enjoyed, when I was a paladin playing back then, having to earn my abilities, having to actually go on a quest and learn how to raise people from the dead, instead of some guy saying, here, give me 20 copper, and now you can raise the dead.
Not even anymore, not even that.
Now you just miraculously figure out how to do it.
Exactly. It takes a lot of flavor out of the game, and for a role-playing game, that flavor is critical. It's an important part of what makes the game what it is. So I think that the class quest, in terms of total time that people are going to spend playing those quests, yes, it's going to be less than a quest that you make just for the general public. But in terms of what they add to game feel and to the feel and flavor of the classes, I think they're actually more than worth doing.
Yeah, that encapsulates my views a lot more succinctly than I can put them. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I agree with that immensely. Florian, you are our main resident warlock. Have you done the Green Fire quest?
I have not yet. That's one of the many things on my list to do.
Okay, so what we have is the only class quest really that I can think of that remains is that Green Fire quest. Correct me if I'm wrong. Can you guys think of any others?
Oh yeah, leveling up my paladin. There's a little quest to go to Shadowfang Keep, and then you can make a big two-handed hammer or something. I mean, those are class quests. They're only available to paladins.
Yeah, there's also a quest for Blood Elf Paladins specifically that requires you to go to 4 different dungeons to kill bosses for materials to craft a Blood Elf Paladin spear. But I'm not sure if that's still around. It's a level 20-ish quest, so it may have been done away with.
And I think the mage gets like a 10 weapon quest that it sucks nowadays because you're done leveling up way past the usefulness of the weapon long before you're done with the quest, and those are things that are kind of getting lost in this compression of the gameplay experience. I think a lot of lore role playing is getting lost because you're not even the same looking character for more than 8 hours of game time at a time, and that's definitely not how it used to be. As far as things that WoW had that maybe it lost, it's making it less like a role playing game.
So in a way, now this is just a little connection I made, we're always referring to these as MMOs, which stems from MMORPG, massive multiplayer online role-playing game. We're starting to lose the RPG as we've already cut it off when we talk about them.
Yeah, is WoW becoming an MMO game?
In some ways, I would say no, because of how much single-player content it is.
That's true. Yeah, there's a lot of
questing
you can do.
It is an MOG, MOG, massive online game.
Half man, half dog.
What do you think, Florian? So is some of this just us moving too far away from the core of RPGs?
I think it's just an evolution in the game and its audience. When WoW first came out, most of the people interested in it were people who were pretty hardcore into Warcraft, very into RPGs. A lot of people who previously had been playing for things like pen and paper RPGs and stuff like that. So it had a lot more flavor, a lot more RPG-ness to it. But over the years, as WoW exploded and got huge, it got more of a mainstream-ish audience. And that kind of audience is less interested in specifically a deeper role-playing experience or having more flavor in the quests and in the world and in the classes, and more interested in, pressing buttons, having fun, getting their gear, and like winning the raid, winning the dungeon. And that's why we have things now like LFR and the Dungeon Finder, and I think that's part of the reason we don't really get class quests anymore, because it's more for WoW's original audience as opposed to the newer, wider audience that they've kind of shifted towards.
So, what is your response then? What is your reaction to Blizzard's response of that these class quests are just too much work? No matter what, some are always better than others. Sure, everyone gets jealous. Oh, he got such a better class quest than I did. I want one. Why is his so much better than mine? His reward's better than mine. What do you think? What is your reaction to that? To that excuse or whatever you want to call it?
I don't think that's a legitimate excuse. Simply because pretty much everyone who plays has alts, right? You guys have alts. I have alts. I imagine there's only very, very few players who literally just have one character that they play and don't play anyone else ever. If you look at the other guy's class quest and it looks super cool, and that class and its lore and its flavor looks super interesting, why don't you just roll one of those? And that's the same thing for the argument earlier where they're like, if we make this quest, it'll only give these players of this one class that content. No, everyone has that content. Everybody can roll that class. It's just up to them whether or not they want to. If they look at it and they think that that thing is cool enough that they want to do it, they can play that class. No one is stopping them.
Evan, anything to add?
I think when you think about items that are similar to Quel'Serrar and the first generation kind of class quests that were exclusive, you have to take it in context, and I think it's dangerous to take it out of context. Back then, there weren't a whole lot of things that made a priest different than a paladin. Nowadays, each spec they've really tried to make deeper and more interesting to play, and I think this game now, even without a single class quest, is more deep and interesting to play and complex than it was then. So I think they're just sourcing that complexity in ways that are more organic and widely distributable.
So now with this idea, though, of the artifacts, though, in a way, that's the return of class quests. Everyone's getting their own, and not only that, you're probably getting... I imagine they'll all start relatively similarly, maybe, but every class is essentially getting 3 class quests now. Druids are getting 4. So, is this them putting forth the effort? Like, maybe this is just their way to, like, see if class quests are worth it? Maybe?
My first thought is that I think this is the compromise. And we're finally kind of getting them back, getting that flavor back. And I think class, the class order halls, I think, are like a huge step towards that, and you guys probably agree. So what they had to do, this is my guess, is homogenize everything kind of first. The game through Burning Crusade, even up till Cataclysm, I'd say might have been a little too wonky to scale with 6 expansions, So you cut everything down, you homogenize, you do an ability prune, and now you can have everybody on a playing field that's equal, and you can build off of all these classes and create all this individual content in a way you weren't able to before. So yeah, the class quests are coming in with Legion, right? It's brand new, and I think that we need to go through this kind of identity prune before they had all the classes in a place where they're happy with how they worked, and now we can build on them, use their new quest systems and everything they've learned with phasing and garrisons to deliver really cool class flavor experiences.
And I think, in a way, this is kind of like, Warcraft is old, and it's gone through and it's going through a lot of growth periods, and I think this is another one. You can love or hate garrisons as much as you want, but they did a lot that did matter. And with that in mind, garrisons are probably going to give way to a new, not form of tech, but just a new technology that we see in the future, and artifacts are probably going to do something similar. I think with what they learn from garrisons and what they are most likely going to learn through class order halls and artifacts, I think a huge sweeping change to Warcraft could come to light, coming in probably the expansion after Legion, after they've done all these little, let's see how this works, let's see how this works. Okay, we've, assembled the data from all of this. Now what does all of that mean?
Yeah. I'll let Florian share you in a second, but just one thing. I don't think that they're going to do 4 expansions to collect data and then have the 5th one be the end-all kind of best expansion ever. I think every time they have an expansion, they use what they know to try to make a good expansion. And with more history behind them, they just keep kind of getting better, and the problems that keep popping up eventually get fixed.
Sure, okay. Florian, what do you think?
Yeah, I can't really argue that point, to be honest. That's kind of Blizzard's MO. They make the best thing they can, and they also throw a few little experiments out there to see if they can make something better next time. That's what they've been doing expansion after expansion for a long time, and that's pretty much just their standard.
But could they, with this information, work towards, a lot of people call, because of, the 13 million subscribers and stuff, they call Wrath of the Lich King, kind of one of the golden eras of Warcraft. And if we compare Warcraft to, we'll say a country, or, a continent or an empire, empires have experienced multiple golden eras in the past. Is it not feasible that we could, a few years down the line, approach a new golden era for Warcraft?
Normally, for something like a country, yes, but the main difference with the country and Warcraft is that Warcraft is something that will eventually become technologically obsolete simply because of the age of its engine. So, while a country could have another golden age, I don't think it'll happen with Warcraft. If it happens, it would have to be sometime within the next few years, because the game is aging very rapidly, and it's not going to be super relevant. Because for the game to get big enough to be really popular and huge like it was in Wrath, the game has to have a lot of players, and most players are going to look like a game like Warcraft. Look at the way it looks and the way it plays and how wonky it is because of its older engine. They're just going to say no. So it's if it happens, it would have to happen soon. Otherwise, we'd have to wait for World of Warcraft 2 or whatever else Blizzard decides to follow up with.
And when you compare games like Warcraft to the games we talked about earlier, Final Fantasy, Guild Wars, Terra, WildStar even, the difference is incredibly apparent.
Definitely. A lot of the newer MMOs have much more, I don't want to say polish, because Blizzard has been working on this for a long time, but they definitely, when you play them, you can tell that they're not as old. They feel much better. The engines are much better optimized. They can push much better graphics with much lower hardware cost, simply because of how much newer they are. There's a very clear, different feel between World of Warcraft and something newer like, say, Final Fantasy XIV or Terra, and a player can notice that.
Blizzard always tries really hard, though, to maintain life in Warcraft, and these artifacts and these new class quests could easily be that.
Right. I think Warcraft has proven to be a much more resilient game than, say, EverQuest was. They had to release a second expansion because I'm guessing EQ1 was unworkable as far as, progressing, keeping up with hardware and content, right?
I don't know. I know nothing about EverQuest. I know that for a while there, like a year and a half ago or something, EverQuest Landmark was supposed to be a big deal, and I don't know whatever happened to that. So I have no idea.
Everything that came out before World of Warcraft is pretty much in their sunset years. Some of them have come and gone, of course, since Warcraft came out, but I think Final Fantasy XI might have been the last big MMO that released before Blizzard got on the scene. Florian, do you know if 11 is still up and running with servers or no?
Oh, it's still going.
11 is still running, and it's still quite successical. It hasn't gone anywhere yet.
Interesting. So do you think what those graphics and engines and things like that are probably only a couple of years, if any, behind World of Warcraft? Do you see it kind of just senescing into a stalwart monument that always has a player base out of nostalgia? Or people who have found a good game that works for them and can satisfy their gaming requirements? Or are they going to stay on like this kind of cutting fresh edge? Like, is WoW going to keep up with Overwatch when it comes out, or is Overwatch going to blow it away and WoW's going to be the old grandpa?
I wouldn't consider WoW and Overwatch really competitors. That's a completely different game. But I would say, I don't know. That really depends on where Blizzard decides to take the game. Honestly, that's more a question for them than for me.
Well, and I think you had a good point there, Florian. I mean, when they announced StarCraft II: Legacy of the Void's release date, November 10th, you know what else comes out on November 10th? Fallout 4, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, Blizzard's insane!" And it's like there is no correlation between those two games at all. At all. Like, someone who plays like an RTS and a first-person first-person sandbox game, like Skyrim or Fallout, there's no correlation whatsoever. I mean, sure, I play both of those games, but they're not the same.
Definitely true. Not at all the same game, not the same audience. They're not competing with each other in any real way.
Right, but I mean, you can draw a parallel as to when the game came out, what kind of graphics engine is it using, and how long does it stay relevant on its particular scene. Just because it's a, say, Counter-Strike first-person shooter, there are people who still play original Counter-Strike, right? But what is the popular FPS right now, and how long has it been on the scene? Are you saying the scene itself is different? You can't compare the two games because they have different marketing drives, and they're keeping up with their genre. World of Warcraft is trying to keep on the MMO scene in general, so you really just can't draw any comparisons.
Well, it's mostly a question of different audiences, because not everyone likes RPGs, and in the same sense, not everyone likes shooters. There's going to be some cross-section in the audience. For example, Michael and I are both very excited about both World of Warcraft and Overwatch. But that's not going to be true for the majority of people. They're going to have their specific interest and play what they want to play. So I don't really see that as being. I don't see there being really any huge amount of intersection between different genres like that.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
Because I mean, remember, Evan, like me and Florian, we play tons of different games. You play a good number of different games, but not everyone's like that. I mean, some people, they play just World of Warcraft, and they're happy to play just World of Warcraft. And, you know, the people that play Call of Duty, they play just Call of Duty. And, you know, when the next Call of Duty comes out, they're like, yeah, the next Call of Duty came out. Woot, woot. But that's as far as it goes. Whereas, you know, there's people like me who I just throw my money at any video game company that asks for it if they show me something shiny. Like,
hey,
I just threw money at Larian Studios like 3 days ago because they're like, hey, we're bringing out Divinity Original Sins 2. You want to back us on Kickstarter? And I'm like, take money.
Yeah, that's right. No, I feel you.
So
you're like a philanthropist, or like a capitalist philanthropy.
I don't know. In some ways, I look at it as of, like, if I don't support them, I don't technically get games from them anymore. Like, I mean, I don't condone it, but I definitely have pirated things. But I understand that doesn't bring the people that made that money. And that's something that I feel should always be considered when, you know, you look at a game and stuff like that. But I mean, if you want, who is it that makes Call of Duty?
Activision.
Is it Activision? So if you want Activision to make money,
sure,
then obviously you go buy Call of Duty. So it just kind of falls into line. We are way off topic. Anyway, I'm gonna play this now. Welcome to the mailbag, everybody. You can send your questions, suggestions, and or feedback on our website at www.thecastbar.com. Call and leave us an email, call and leave us a voicemail at 508-738-2278. You can find us on Twitter at Castbar Podcast. We'll be happy to answer questions or even, you know, take questions or whatever on there. And you can email us anything you like at thecastbar@gmail.com. Now, we do not have any mail this week, so I am hijacking the mailbag to do something else with it, and that is to announce that it's time for us to do another giveaway. I'm dancing in my chair right now. None of you can see it. So the item that we're going to be giving away is the Mystic Rune Saber. It is the new mount. I did double check this time to make sure it is giftable, and it is. We had some problems with that with the RG Pet. Something about with the RG Pet and how it was going to charity. You're not able to gift it to people because that makes sense in some crazy world that I don't understand. So I double checked. We're able to gift it. If you already have the Mystic Rune Saber and you win, don't worry about it. We'll figure something out with you. And, you know, if you've bought all the mounts, then maybe we can send you like a Battle.net gift card or something like that. So, anyway, all you have to do is either send us a tweet on Twitter with the hashtag Castbar giveaway. That's CASTBARGIVEAWAY. I almost spelled that wrong. Castbar giveaway on Twitter, or just send us an email. It doesn't matter what the email is. If you send us an email, then you are automatically entered to win this mount on your World of Warcraft account. It is not limited to region because we'll be picking it up to give to you after we have selected the winner. So don't be worried if you are US, EU, or otherwise. We will work that out with you, and we'll make sure that you get the mount. We have not settled on a date that we are announcing the winner. Probably, what do you guys think? 2 weeks?
Let's see. Maybe give it 3, I don't know.
Let's do 2 weeks. This is episode 47.
Sure.
Well, what do you guys... Okay, quick. Pause real quick. What do you guys think is more important? Do you think reaching episode 50 is more important, or episode 52, in which it'll actually be a full year of the Castbar? We are only 5 weeks away from having done a full year of the Castbar, by the way. Just imagine that for a second.
Our subsequent, our 1 year anniversaries and our 50 episode anniversaries are only going to get farther and farther apart. So this is probably the last chance we're going to have to celebrate them together before it's like a month away from one to the other.
Yeah, I mean, right now, episode 50 and episode 52, which is a year, will be 2 weeks apart. And then after that, I mean, like you said, it'll get farther and farther apart. Episode 100 in 2 years will be a full month apart. So, I mean, I mean, in a way, we could just say 50 is a year because it's real close. What do you guys want to do? By the way, this is how organized we are, guys, of that we don't actually discuss anything off record, and we just come on here and decide everything.
No, there's a lot of chat that goes on behind the scenes.
It's not about anything important.
Let's celebrate the big 5-0. I think that feels good.
Okay.
I propose we split the difference and celebrate at 51 weeks.
Can't be fairer than that.
All right, so we'll just aim for somewhere around there then. Let's go ahead and give this mount away in 2 weeks, and we will do something else that we can talk about at another time when we are more prepared to do something for episode 50-ish through 52-ish, 51-ish stuff. Sound good?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, sweet. Remember, guys, Castbar giveaway hashtag on Twitter or just send us an email. Either one of those will work just fine. If you don't want to send us an email directly to thecastbar@gmail.com, you can fill out that form on our website at www.thecastbar.com. Let's get into that review. Welcome to the review, everybody. This week, we do have a review. I realized we didn't do last week. I apologize. We had a little problems with scheduling and stuff like that. We managed to make it work this time. This week, we are going to be reviewing Zul Farak. This is and if I'm remembering correctly, because I didn't check the name of what I ran, this is the 5-man dungeon in Tanaris, right outside of Gadgetzan. It's right around levels, like, what is that, like 42, 43-ish, 47?
46 to 49 right
I was close! Alright, so we break the, wow, I realize I haven't said this in a while. This is like our first review that we've got to do in like 3 weeks between people being gone and scheduling failing and stuff like that. So, my normal thing I rattle off just left my brain. We break the review into three. What?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
We break the review into 3 sections. It's ambience, gameplay, and lore. Ambience is everything you see, hear, feel. The gameplay is pretty, the bosses, the mechanics, the loot, the God knows what, the quests, and the lore obviously is a story, because none of us would be playing World of Warcraft if it wasn't for the story involved. I mean, I can give you a text-based RPG, and, well, it probably wouldn't be anywhere close to the same. We do letter grades. If you are joining us for the first time, anywhere from A+ to F, get that stuff out of my face. Alright, ambience. I'll go ahead and kick off the ambience, because as little as I care about it in real world, places like Tanaris, Zul Farak, Oldham, those places are some of my favorite in Warcraft. And like in real world, I don't really care about, Egyptian type historical stuff. I'm like, yeah, that's cool, whatever. For some reason in Warcraft, though, I'm super into it. Zul Farak, when you walk in, it's this broken down ruins looking area with the big sandstone pillars, and you walk in and it's a troll dungeon, so if you're sick of trolls, well, that's too bad, because we're probably going to be fighting some in Legion. But it's this sand tomb thing. Really just kind of think of it as you found some ruins in the sand and there happened to be magic there, and there's a bunch of trolls there controlling the magic. And it feels real good as you're progressing through, because it doesn't feel like initially like this was set up like a dungeon. It feels like this was actually something that was kind of like swept away out of the ground by the wind, by time, etc. Because there's not really a set pathway that you can go. There's a couple different directions you can go. They all end up leading the same direction, really. But that's not really the point of that. This doesn't necessarily feel like a standard catered to me, built for me to go a certain way so that I always know what I need to do dungeon. You can go to the left and there's some bosses over there. You can go to the right and there's a boss hidden in a cave that you might miss completely. If you go and touch this, there's a boss over there, and it just depends on which direction you go. And it's kind of almost maze-like, but don't think of it like a maze in that you're actually going to like get confused and lost, because there's not that many directions. And then you have this big, awesome, open area. in essentially the center of it in the back. And it's got this big giant staircase up to, where like the throne would be. And it's this big open area where when you're up there, it feels awesome because you're looking down like, you can almost visualize it just being full of your subjects and be like, I am the pharaoh, bow to me. Did either of you guys get that effect at all, or am I just crazy?
Well, I got that effect. I was just thinking about it, though. These ruins, first of all, ambience-wise, I want to juxtapose these two things. They're stone ruins and, like, big face effigies and stuff like that. And then there are these, like, wooden twig huts, which it seems like that's what they live in. And I don't know if the Sand Fury, I think, trolls, just moved into this place, or did they build it originally, or was it built thousands of years ago and these trolls just moved in? Anybody know?
Florian, do you know?
It is very old. I don't know if these guys just moved in or if they previously lived here. I'm pretty sure they just moved in because, they're ruins and, you don't generally live in ruins.
Yeah, I think the ambience, a lot of the ambient points I have are going to fit better into lore, so I can save them for that. As far as ambience of this place, I like the juxtaposition that I just mentioned with the old sand ruins and then these twig huts, just because it brings a little bit of green in there and it just softens up like the rough, dry edges, I guess, makes sense. And then I always like how the little sand huts are always really high and like inaccessible places, like they're some climbing, jumping animal people,
Well, I think that actually serves a very specific purpose. All throughout Zul Farak is bugs. Bugs love sand. Especially like different types of beetles and stuff like that. They're able to like, bury down in the sand. It's all warm and cozy and stuff. A lot of those huts and stuff are placed up on top of what is more solid dirt, which will have less gross in it. And I think that's where a lot of that comes from. That actually serves a literal purpose.
Oh, cool. Yeah, very nice. But I don't know if this is something that you see in ancient civilizations on Earth. Not sure they got the inspiration. Because as far as style, you're talking about the giant pyramid with the guy at the top. That kind of reminded me more of Aztec mythology than Egyptian. Again, they have all these animal deities, animal effigies. That was a big Aztec thing, Mesoamerican indigenous society kind of thing. Might that have been the direction they're going for?
Sure. Like I said, I didn't study it that closely.
Oh, cool.
Just sand. I don't mean the dungeon. I mean like real life history, like exactly. Sand and stone and stuff. If it just turned out to be a different people, I'd just be like, oh, sure, okay.
Yeah, that's
one
what
thing I'd like to add.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. While we're still on this topic, I was going to change.
One thing that you brought up, as far as ambience, was a huge tall pyramid, and then you have the prisoners up there at the top. Obviously, I think they're going for the human sacrifice thing. I don't know if the Egyptians did too much human sacrifice. Definitely an Aztec thing. I think it makes it kind of gruesome. Again, when you pull your ambience from stuff that's like from actual history, it makes you able to convey a lot more the kind of temperament of that people to people draw conclusions, without you having to put it in their face or, say it at all. And that's all I have to say.
No, that makes sense. Florian, what were the topic that we were going to be changing to?
Well, it's still on ambience, but one of the things I'd like to point out, in the context of where this dungeon appears in the leveling, this is a dungeon that you hit in it's now mid-40s, it used to be low 40s, and one of the interesting things about this dungeon is this is the first dungeon you get to that really is big and open and entirely outside, where you can run around with your mount and explore it at full speed. And what that does is help to make this place feel huge and expansive, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like it's a huge pain to get around because you have access to the mount because they chose to make it outdoors. And I feel that does a lot to help make this dungeon feel unique from other dungeons, if that makes any sense. Since a lot of the big places we tend to go to are either underground or indoors or in all kinds of other wacky places.
Oh, no, I can definitely agree with that. It so often I feel like I said right at the beginning of the ambience, it felt like one of the few dungeons where we weren't being, drawn by a hot dog on a stick going, come this way, come this way, come this way. in which it did feel big and open like that, and that's really nice compared to, the, like you were saying, the, the cavern, the cave or whatever that we have, of which you only have one pathway to get through it, and it's obvious that, well, I guess that's the way I'm gonna go, since I don't have another way that I can take.
Yeah, it's just the old kind of style that I miss from those days. These days I almost dislike that it's so centered around, I guess it just stands out to me, and that's what I accuse. Challenge modes, they want it kind of linear, so that for challenge modes, does that make any sense at all? Or the dungeons are less like 2, 3, 4 hour long adventures and more of something that, you gotta have a 15-minute dungeon, you gotta have maybe one 30-minute dungeon, but if we have 6 dungeons, we only want 2 of them to last 30 minutes or more, kind of thing. It's all about economizing.
Well,
this dungeon, had a lot of side bosses.
I think part of that comes from the changes. Hey, Cortana, go away. I think part of that comes from the. Whoa, my mic got louder because of that. Hang on. Anyway, am I maxing stuff out? No, I almost am. I'm going to turn this down a little bit. I think part of that, what it comes from, is the idea of that us as gamers our available time has gotten more valuable and a lot more strained, and so we don't necessarily feel like we want to devote the time anymore to run a dungeon that takes 4 hours. Our difference between, again, like we were talking about earlier, effort versus satisfaction, we want. And maybe it's a generational thing. I don't know. I don't want to get like too political and big with this, but the world has changed in a way of where people aren't really willing to put forth hours and hours and hours of their time just for the satisfaction of completing it. So now we really need something that really pushes it a little bit farther, but gives it to us faster because we're needy. Does that make sense?
Makes some amount of sense, and it's probably a lot of it is the issue of the fact that the gaming demographic has consistently gotten older, really over the past like 30 years or so, but especially over the past 10 years, and World of Warcraft is one of the first games that has had to deal with the fact of the players' base growing older on average as the game continues to exist, and I think this is one way for them to cope with the fact that, whereas, when I started playing WoW, I was in college and I had nothing to do but college and WoW, so I had tons of time. But now it's like, I've got real life stuff to do, got real situations, so things tend to get shorter. Layouts for dungeons and things like that tend to get simplified, and a little bit of the sort of adventuring kind of gets lost in the sauce as a result.
I think you're right, but we have kind of drifted away from a review. So, Evan, what is your ambience grade?
My ambience grade for this place is a B. It is a little bit bland with the amount of repetition of the sand and ruin, and then sand and ruin, and sand and ruin. But it does really convey a story, and it's descriptive. So it definitely gets a good grade, at least.
Florian?
For ambience, I'm going to give it a B. It's really well designed. I like the outdoor design and the way everything is set up, but a lot of the design, some of the design seems a little lazy. A lot of big, open, empty areas, a lot of really jaggy looking textures, and it's definitely hasn't aged well.
It is a vanilla dungeon, and I'm sitting on that same plot because. I mean, we try and not wear too many rose-colored sunglasses, but also not be wearing the high-definition ones, where we kind of give it, credit for what it is, but in some ways, it does stick out. And, maybe it's time. I mean, we talked about it before, how easily could they just change things over? I personally think it might be easier than it initially seems, but I don't know. I would like to hope, at least. But there is no way to actually know that because, well, Blizzard doesn't tell us that kind of stuff. But it could just use a quick once-over. But, and maybe that's something that is going to be coming up soon. I mean, Warcraft with every expansion, one of the dungeons has been getting updated. One of the old dungeons, has been getting an update in some form of some kind. So maybe we'll see that again soon.
Yeah, I expect. Mm-hmm. They don't want to get rid of anything. I can't imagine them ever saying there is no more Scarlet Monastery.
Well, and Zul Farak hasn't gotten a legacy update yet, has it?
No, it hasn't. It's still untouched since vanilla. I'm almost certain. There used to be an old sword quest that was part of that dungeon that might have gotten axed, but I'm not positive on that.
Okay, it doesn't have like a level 85 heroic version or anything like that?
No, none of that.
Okay. So, Evan, will you please deliver to our ears some gameplay?
Sure. Yeah, the cool thing about this place, like you said, is there's a boss in a cave that you wouldn't know about unless you passed the terrain and went outside the ruins. There's a boss on the left side that you have to summon with a gong. There's an event where you're meeting up with these Alliance prisoners, and then running down the staircase. I imagine there's still Alliance people for you guys, correct?
Yes.
Or it's a mix. There's a goblin with them, So, for example, there's that. But so there's a lot of cool things about this dungeon that make it stand out, and there's also some stuff that hasn't been redone actually, like the Scarab Room with that one boss. It's kind of a miniature boss, not a big deal. There are a bunch of neutral scarabs, like one per every square feet, so they're walking around all around you, and if you can manage to not use any AoE, they would pull really, really easily, and you'd have a swarm on you. Especially during the boss fight, everybody's firing off their abilities. Really cool environmental hazard that isn't scripted. It's just there. And I guess that was what they're working with the technology at the time. They couldn't script boss fights like they can these days. But it was something cool that provided an effect that wasn't really ever recreated. So those are some highlights from the gameplay. Favorite boss fight at this place is probably going to be... they're all kind of low-key, nothing really tough, but probably the boss fight that incorporated the run down the pyramid steps that culminated fighting, I think, Jendo the Hexer and his assistant. Big, huge event. You could pull a ton at once, and there's a huge crowd of trolls trying to kill you, or you could pull them one at a time. It'd be a little bit safer, but it'd take longer. Also, like if you say the wrong thing to the Alliance guy, they'll turn on you, and you have a little miniature boss fight, kind of PvP style. Then I would say that was my favorite part of the whole dungeon.
One of the things I really enjoyed about gameplay in this place is right after the boss in the cave, you're walking down in that area right near where the Hexer guy is, and he has a little chest in there with him and stuff. You can disturb those graves that are around, and if you disturb the graves, corpses pop out and attack you.
Yeah, you can get little pieces of ender trash like jewelry in some of them, and other ones, an elite zombie mob will spawn, and those things aren't, they're no joke.
Yeah, they're angry. They don't want to be messed with. They're real mad at you.
Yeah, that's another thing you don't really see, like voluntary optional mobs that you can. I guess the sleeping orcs and things like Shattered Halls. Can you even really pass those? I think you always have to kill them anyway. But definitely, in like Scholomance and Stratholme too, lots of packs of mobs that you can avoid, or you can get them all if you're really going for experience. However, in World of Draenor, there aren't very many mobs that you just skip. I'm thinking like the train dungeon. I guess in the garden dungeon, you can skip a lot of those mobs. It is
because all monsters in Warcraft are extremely nearsighted. So when they see when their buddy down the hallway is getting murdered horribly, they have no idea what's happening.
Yeah, mob aggro range is something that is probably a mixed blessing. Could you imagine playing a game where you really did have to sneak into a place and murder people silently, or raise a whole alarm and just get this walloped by some logically, comprised security force? It'd be a lot more realistic, but it would it wouldn't be as fun, I don't think, would it?
I think it would sound hilarious, but that's just me. Did you mention the summoning of Gazrilla?
Only very briefly.
Okay. So you don't have to do anything special anymore, right? You can just go hit the gong and the giant Hydra flies out?
Clearing a little bit of the room is preferable, but yeah, I think you can hit it any time.
So that you don't get face stomped by all the things?
There's like 9 little packs and some patrols in that room. It's a nasty room.
There's a boss in there too, besides Gazrilla.
Right, the Hydromancer. So when everybody leaves after the big boss, and you have 3 people left, and you go try to get that Hydromancer, that can be really dangerous.
Now, one thing that I wanted to question, ask about, etc., on this thing, and it's not necessarily just this dungeon. A few other dungeons do it too, and I just want your guys' opinion on it and what you guys think. This dungeon, the final boss to this dungeon is actually at the top of the little pathway going up the steps. Now, knowing, and it happens a lot, and maybe this is a faulty of Dungeon Finder, but people, there's 2 directions you can go. You can go to the left where Gazrilla is, or you can go to the right where the Hex Mage and the dude in the cave are, and both lead to that middle area where, the slaves are, and then you can walk up towards where, where that boss guy is. Now, thinking of that, I have been in multiple pugs that will take one direction, get up there, go to one of the, go up there, kill the boss, and just leave before even bothering with the other bosses. What is your guys' thoughts on that? That it's not real clear, where what the end of the dungeon is and how bosses can be skipped real easily.
I think that's not a problem with the dungeon itself, and more of a problem with Blizzard's retroactive little their set requirements for clearing a dungeon in the looking for dungeon queue. Another good example is the Wailing Caverns. Back when before we had the looking for dungeon, I played Wailing Caverns quite a bit because I leveled characters as everyone does, and I had no idea there was a Murloc boss at the end. I had never seen him before because nobody ever went to him. I thought, you just fight all the Naga guys, and then you were good to go. But not Naga, sorry. Or were they Nagas? It doesn't matter. This isn't about Wailing Caverns. But I never knew that guy was a boss until Looking for Dungeon came around, and you were required to beat him in order to get credit for completing the dungeon. And it was like, oh man, there was this whole other boss in here that I've never seen or heard of that was here the entire time since vanilla. Well, and I think it's the same thing here. Like, they allow you to complete the dungeon after you just kill a few guys. They don't require you to go through all the bosses, so a lot of people don't bother checking if there are more bosses.
Well, and on that same point, up until patch 6.2, which this was kind of like an undocumented change, that Evan, what is that dungeon that I always get confused? It's the one that has like 17 bosses in it. Blackrock
Depths.
Depths, thank you! For LFR, they have that broken into 2 sections. They have the first half and the second half. Well, I don't know who did it. It doesn't matter. But it used to be that in the first half, there was the boss chickie lady who's right inside in the right in the little like prison rock dome thing. She's the very first boss, and for some reason she would complete the dungeon. Like, you would get credit for completing the dungeon, then everyone would leave when there's like 8 bosses left, and a whole bunch of trash and loot and experience that just never gets done because people are like, oh, dungeon's done, bye. Anyway, that doesn't really matter. It was just something that always bothered me about this dungeon with the gameplay. And it's kind of been solved now with the new way that Dungeon Finder works, because you get a bonus gold experience and everything for defeating all of the bosses. They have the little check marks of, such and such killed, blah, 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 blah. So that has helped it along quite a bit. So it doesn't matter anymore, I guess, really. So, Florian, do you have a favorite section of the gameplay for Zul Farak? No?
That was a Florian, right? Or is it to me?
That was Florian.
Okay.
It's probably the pyramid fight that we've previously brought up. I really thought it was interesting and a little unique, because most vanilla dungeons, It's just a series of bosses in a series of rooms, and you go and you beat the crap out of them, and you really don't have to do much extra. This, you actually have to, you go talk to some people, and then you fight waves, and then you can fight the bosses, and then there's that optional extra sort of, not really boss fight, but sort of, that you can do, where you fight the guys that you were previously helping out. I think that was really, really well designed, especially by vanilla standards.
Also, some backstory to the disagreement that leads to the fight with the Alliance people. You're given a quest in Gadgetzan Daenerys to reclaim this goblin trinket. It's not like a camouflage, I forget what it is. Some kind of dowsing rod, I think. And he says, I think basically I don't want to give it up. Have at the. I think it's pretty simplified, but there's a reason you talk to him and beat the crap out of him. You want to get his thing to give it to the other guy because it belongs to the other guy, right? There you go for a Warcraft quest. And I hope I'm not missing a big part of that makes it really a great storyline. I think it was relatively simplistic like that, but there is a reason you do it if people are kind of spacing on why you'd help some people build a bunch of trolls and then blow their brains out.
Because we're all evil in our heart, really.
Yeah, that's
the truth behind it. If you really want to get in deep about it, of that we're all in Warcraft truly evil people.
Yeah,
I mean,
goes and murders a bunch of furlbogs, even if they're aggressive. I mean, where's the voice of reason and morality? Nobody stops and asks that guy.
What? Reason?
I mean, in
morality.
Village,
what are those?
Humanoid. Sorry, go ahead.
I said morality. Reason. Yeah. What are those?
Are they saying what is this question about furbolgs you're talking about?
Oh, no. I was just saying that we don't have any morality or reason to our characters. Just someone goes, "Hey, go kill everyone in that camp," and we're just like, "Okay, what are you giving me?"
Right, exactly. In Elder Scrolls, they're famous for kind of having these game-changing decision points you make. You're doing a quest, and you're like, "My son's a vampire. Don't kill him. He's my son." And you're like, "I'm gonna kill him." Or you can say, "All right, he can live." And that changes the game and changes people's perspective. You can't really make any choices in WoW except whether you want a jeweler's boutique or a fashion show runway in your garrison.
Always the fashion show. Anyway,
that's how you get more Blood Elf followers.
Gameplay great. I think this place was fantastic. I think that progression through it feels good. I think that it has just the right level of difficulty when we're talking about the trash packs. They're just close enough that you can pull too many, but the trash isn't ever overwhelming. It's good trash. The bosses are good. I really love the interaction up there with the slaves and everything that can happen there, and that can become really overwhelming. And just the whole thing is just, I think, really well done. This gets an A- from me. I think it needed a little bit of polish, a little bit of, I don't want them to guide me, but I think a little bit of direction would have helped. And just I'm going to give it an A. I'm going to give it an A, not an A-, because there's so much just cool stuff here, like with the way you summon Gazrilla, and he just pops out of that little water fountain, and there's just so much here, and it's done very, very well, and it still holds up incredibly well, and it's a really fun dungeon. A from me. Florian.
I'm going to say the same. I feel this place deserves an A, especially by vanilla standards. It was really good. It's got a lot of interesting, fun stuff to do, and some interesting boss fights. I like it. I think it's a pretty rad dungeon.
I think even by today's standards, it's got some balls. Evan.
Yeah, by today's standards, it's still fun.
And Evan, where are you sitting?
B+, man. Honestly, this is B+ because this is a Haas, one of the really cool, spread out, well designed dungeons of Blizzard's heyday back in vanilla. This is definitely the kind of non-linear dungeon I really like. But it is time for an update. I'm going to say, Blizzard, don't do it like Razorfen Downs. Don't make it the same dungeon with Harrison Jones, running along beside us, Bronzebeard style. It just turns it into it's the same thing. It's the same basic thing, except you have an NPC that's doing some NPC stuff. I say update the bosses, give them a little bit, give them a mechanic or two to make them kind of, give them an identity, make these boss events like the mage guy you're talking about in the buried zombie troll pit. Get those zombie trolls really popping, make it kind of like The Walking Dead, I don't know. and the guy in the cave give him like a super basilisk, something like that.
Something relevant.
What's good about this dungeon better, or make it, the non-linear version, the different bosses, the kind of story that they tell, the summoning guys really pump up the immersion and the experience. Don't just gloss it over and give it some weird kind of coat of paint. Although I think what they did to Raven Crawl and Black Phantom Dave is really cool. I just have a special fondness for this that I don't have for those other guys. They could have done, whatever they wanted with them,
All right, then. I realize I didn't do an average on ambience. We all gave it a B, so average is B. We have 2 A's and a B plus on gameplay. That leaves it at an A minus. Florian, tell us a story, please.
I will tell you a story, or what story there is to tell. Well, actually, there's a little bit more than the last few times when we've had almost no lore. So Zul Farak is a troll city, or at least it was a troll city. Now it's kind of a troll ruin, but I guess technically it's inhabited by a bunch of trolls, so maybe that still makes it a city. It's mincing words, though. In any case, it used to be really awesome back in the days of the Troll Empire. Obviously, those world days are pretty over, and now it's pretty much just inhabited by some sand fairy trolls who are they're pretty mad about the lack of said glorious troll empire, and they kind of want to bring it back. At least their chief is super into restoring it to its former glory, and not really clear on how they intend to do this, because I can't find any information on what the actual plot is. This dungeon seems interesting to me in the sense that it's not a place where there's like, this is a specific bad guy or this is a specific problem you have to go solve. It's like there's just a series of things going on here, and you just kind of adventure your way through the dungeon, and you discover things. Like, for example, the guys who've been captured and are stuck at the top of the pyramid. You just discover that. Your goal is not to go there to do that. And a lot of the same things for the rest of it. Like, the Chief Ukor Sandscalp, which I've probably butchered his name, but that's irrelevant. He's definitely not a super great guy. He wants to bring his what is it called? His tribe back to glory, and is willing to do terrible things to do that. But he's not like a major villain. He hasn't really done anything really bad, or he doesn't have a super weapon, as dungeons are so fond of having these days. Is you just kind of show up and fight your way through some stuff, and I think that's really interesting to not have like a specific lore goal, but more just general things that you're just kind of looking at and checking out, and you just end up in fights along the way.
Yeah, I definitely agree completely. I mean, it just feels so like very immersive of like, hey, what's this over here? And everything just flows really well together, like you were saying.
Right. I want to capitalize on that one point you made, how it's really a lot better of a lore experience in the dungeon when you're discovering everything about the story as you're journeying around. That's what playing the game is, not somebody telling you all the story and telling you why the guy's so bad, but seeing the bad shit the guy's doing, trapping the prisoners, having the executioner up there. I mean, the bloodthirsty, brutal race, right? And these are things that you are shown and you experience in the first person, that kind of primary experience there. So, yeah, much better when the dungeon tells the story itself than when it's kind of fed to you. And it is kind of a shame that we have to look up all these extra details on a separate website. I wish they were available, but as far as an exploration and adventure, this dungeon's a really cool place.
Now, I have a question. Since we were talking about how we hope that sometime in the near future this dungeon gets a heroic update, Florian, since you're you, we'll start with you. What would you like to see them do lore-wise, bringing this dungeon into the future?
I'm not really sure what they could. You mean like what would the new plot be, or how would I like them to handle the lore?
Yes.
Okay, great. That cleared up a lot. I definitely think they should leave the storytelling the way it is now, where you're not told a bunch of things, you're not told a bunch of exposition and then go here. You just show up and you see what's going on, and you just kind of handle things as they go. I think that's really good, and I'm honestly surprised it doesn't get used more often in dungeons. As for what the actual lore would be, I would assume there would be another troll guy who would probably be super interested in making the Troll Empire come back. and he would do his generic troll thing and cause us to have another troll dungeon.
So here's kind of something that I would like to see.
That's really funny. Don't blame Blizzard for troll dungeons. It's the trolls' fault. They do this stuff, and then we got another troll dungeon. We got to take care of it.
It's true. What I kind of would like to see, to me, and maybe it's not, the words. To me, this place still seems somewhat buried, like we haven't uncovered all of it. Kind of like how in Maradon, there's still parts of it that we need to excavate out and stuff, because Maradon was sunk, and you can see there that we're not seeing the entire city. We're seeing very small pieces of it. And I get the feeling that Zul Farak is in some way in the same situation. So I would kind of like to see them expand Zul Farak a little bit, make it a little bit bigger. I mean, I don't necessarily mean like, completely overhaul the whole thing, but, maybe dig down a little bit farther, in the sand type stuff, because, maybe the walls are, go down farther and we can find like doors and stuff instead of just random empty rooms. And kind of, maybe we find something there. Maybe there's a Titan relic there or something like that. There's a lot of directions they can go with that if we go deeper. And I feel like they would have an opportunity to really do something pretty grandiose on a small scale with what could possibly be hidden in Zul Farak, because we didn't really find or see anything there.
I really like that point a whole lot. Florian or Michael, do you know anything about the Gazrilla lore itself, or the quest chain that happens in the hinterlands that's related to him?
No.
Originally, and I did remember this, there was a little bit of an update. There used to be a mallet that you assemble in the hinterlands, because there are also these troll temples in the hinterlands. There's also that kind of outdoor 5-man dungeon in the hinterlands that we should probably review on its own sometime. I think that's worth looking at. But maybe we could just roll that into a hinterlands zone review. There isn't very much else there besides that, I guess, right? At any rate, there is one temple where you get a shaft, and one temple where you get a mallet head, and you put them together and do the hokey pokey, and then you can go to Zul Farak and summon Gazrilla by hitting the gong with it. And they took out the mallet part. Now you just go and right click on the gong. But it's part of this summoning ritualistic magic that they do. And I don't know if Gazrilla himself is like some kind of creature from the deeps, or some old god related thing, or if they kind of create him with this magic. But I think summoning representations of their gods or demigods is a kind of a troll magic thing. So in a lore update to this dungeon, I think digging down into the excavation, revealing more stuff would have to be involved. I think some new troll bad guy, like Florian said, would have to be involved. And he's after summoning some of this primal, like Hakar style, blood flaying magic. And I think a big souped up Gazrilla is something we could probably expect in it as well.
I'm game. Let's do it. Make it happen right now. Do it. I want it in Legion.
Cut and print. Yeah, get out of Blizzard.
All right, Evan. Well then, what is your lore grade?
I'm gonna give it a solid B+.
A B+. Florian, how about yourself?
I will also give it a solid B+. It's enough lore to be serviceable, and the storytelling was pretty good, even though there wasn't much there.
And I'm actually sitting on a B- for much the same reasons. I think it's really good, especially by a vanilla standpoint, in which a lot of things didn't necessarily make sense in vanilla. They just kind of went, story over here, yeah! I still think it was really good, though. I think they did a fantastic job, and it deserves what it's getting. And I really hope that it gets what it deserves in getting an update in the near future. So we have 2 Bs and an A-. That looks like a final score of a B+ to me. Not bad for a dungeon that's 10 years old and hasn't had any form of update in that time. If we're wrong on that, someone feel free to, just jump in and let us know that we're wrong and it was updated in Wrath of Lich King and all of us forgot.
That really reminded me, if we're going to the end... Oh, yeah, never mind. Get back to me after the end of the review there.
I'm done.
Okay. Information. Call of Duty is actually made by 3 different developing firms. They are Sledgehammer Games, most recently Treyarch 2005 to now, and Infinity Ward 2003 to now.
Infinity Ward, that's the one that I was thinking of. They're the ones that make Modern Warfare, right?
I suppose so. The other thing, the lore, the gallery of 10 images in the Warcraft subreddit is all posted by the same guy. He has a YouTube channel, so a shout out to Doron. YouTube channel is Doron's Movies, DORONS movies.com, or not .com, but that's the YouTube channel name. He's got little YouTube lore videos, and then he's also at the same username, I think, posting on Reddit these little lore trivia screenshot galleries, and those are cool to check out if you want trivia or want to go into even longer explanations. Let's see. He's got a lot of stuff down here, so spent a good Saturday listening to all this stuff. I liked it so far, so I'm a fan.
Wonderful. Well, time for this. Oh, maybe. That is our show, everybody. We're a minute and a half away from our 2-hour time limit that we try and set out ourselves. Don't forget about that giveaway. If you'd like the Mystic Rune Saber or one of the other mounts from the Blizzard store, be sure to send us a tweet with the hashtag Castbar giveaway, or send us any form of mail either through our website contact us page or at our email at thecastbar@gmail.com, and that website is www.thecastbar.com. So, now, if you are listening to our show on one of the platforms and you don't like it, you can also find our shows on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and on our website. I have to give some credit out, and that's to the gentleman that does our bumpers, which is Kevin McLeod. Find all of his work at Incomtech.com. If you'd like to find me, you can find me on pretty much all forms of social media. My Reddit account is Schwan, SCHWAHN. Find me on Twitter, Snapchat, God knows what else, Vine, everything under the handle Schwan Michael. Evan, what about yourself?
Send an email through the Castbar to me at thecastbar@gmail.com, or if you want to hit me up on Twitter and follow me, my username is at EDCWow. EDCWow, that is. Sorry, I sounded like an A the first time.
And Florian, he does not do much social networking. Do you have anything that you'd like to tack onto the end there, Florian?
Email, Castbar, send now.
Do it now.
You can send us a blank email.
It's true. You can send us a blank email to enter the contest.
It's got to... I mean...
we need it to be an email that we can reach you at, obviously. I mean, if we pick your email as the winner and we're like, yo, hey, you win, and you're like, oh, I just made that email because it's trash and I never check it.
You have to identify yourself as a Warcraft person. It can't just be spam. It'll be like, we'll get to the Castbar giveaway, and it'll be like, the winner's CVS Pharmacies. It's just the rules. So they just send us so many voicemails.
They do! I get, like, what a
technically
month!
The most...
I've even called and told them they're out of like Iowa. I've told them that, like, yo, hey, this is a Google voice account, and they're like, oh, sorry, we'll take you off the list to renew your subscription. I'm like, it's not mine. Anyway,
You are out of time.